Welcome to One.
Hi, I'm TC Martin, and I am an English major in the class of 2020. When I was a kid, I loved roller coasters. My family had season passes to King's Dominion, an amusement park in Doswell, Virginia, and we visited almost every weekend during summer break. I was something of a stats junkie. I knew that the Dominator roller coaster at King's Dominion had a maximum height of 157 feet, reached speeds up to 65 miles per hour, and contained 5 inversions, or elements during which the passenger cars flipped upside down. I could rattle off such numbers for any roller coaster at King's Dominion, or at any other amusement park between the Atlantic and the Mississippi. One day, when I was in the 9th grade, my parents and I visited Busch Gardens theme park in Williamsburg, Virginia. My favorite roller coaster was there, the Apollo's Chariot. It had no inversions at all. Its brilliance was in its hilly, dragon-like design. During the 2-minute and 15-second ride, passengers experienced almost 30 seconds of zero-G airtime. For almost 30 seconds, you believed you were flying. At the time, I was bigger than my father, who had been successful at losing weight and was now far skinnier than he was when I was born. He was my riding partner. Nothing scared him. Not even the 456-foot-tall King Ka roller coaster in New Jersey, which, when we rode it together several years prior, had left me sobbing. We and 34 other riders climbed into the cheery purple and yellow cart of the Apollo's Chariot. Dad strapped himself in, buckling the seatbelt and lowering the lap bar down over his thighs. I did the same, or tried to. The seatbelt barely buckled, and when I pulled the bar down to my lap, it didn't catch. It sprang back up like a cat's toy, taunting me. I tried so hard to pull the bar down that I bruised my legs and stomach. But it was no use. I was simply too fat. The conductor halted the ride and let my father and me get off. The mechanics of the ride required that all lap bars be raised to allow a single passenger to disembark. The other riders glanced around when their bars were unexpectedly released, wondering what was happening. Their eyes landed on me, my cheeks wet and scalding red, and my smaller father trailing after me down the exit ramp. We reconvened with my mother, who had been waiting to take a photo of us mid-flight. She put away her camera, and we trudged together to the parking lot. I sniffled and didn't answer when she asked me what was wrong. Wasn't it obvious?
We've just heard a fantastic excerpt from your nonfiction work, The Body Thus Confesses, Coming of Age as a Fat Man. Can you summarize for us what the whole story is about?
Yeah, so The Body Thus Confesses covers roughly a year of my life. During that time, I was a member of WW, the weight loss company formerly known as Weight Watchers. I had been a member of WW before, actually, back when its name really was Weight Watchers, when I was a kid, about 11 or 12. And so I felt that I should explore this facet of my identity that for basically my entire life I had wanted to ignore.
Can you tell us how and why you decided to major in nonfiction writing at Yale?
Yeah, so creative nonfiction was definitely not the plan when I first arrived at Yale. I entered as a modern Middle Eastern studies major, but the first English class, the first writing class I'd actually taken was in the fall semester of my first year at Yale. I took it with a professor named Barbara Stewart, who's incredible. She's been a mentor for me the last 4 years at Yale. I took her class English 120, reading and writing the modern essay, which is a sort of crash course in the personal essay genre. I really, felt the liberty for the first time to explain myself or to confess or confide things that Before then, I never really had the courage to say about myself or to say to others. And I found the page was a really useful way for me to do that.
At times when artists create work about themselves, the works are instruments of self discovery and catharsis, and at other times they're efforts to inform and educate an audience. Can you tell us where the body thus confesses falls on that spectrum and why?
Sure. So I think the body thus confesses falls somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. And I'm glad you phrased it as a spectrum because there are parts of the body thus confesses that are incredibly personal. They're practically their only relevance in the piece is personal. So I do think that self-discovery was a huge aspect of the body thus confesses. I don't know if I'd quite call it cathartic though. And I think that this is a really important distinction when it comes to memoir. I do think that part of the piece's responsibility is to inform. I have sections in it that are historical, that are cultural. They cover things like the history of Jean Nidetch, who was the founder of Weight Watchers, um, as well as things like the Venus of Willendorf, an ancient statue of a fat woman.
As you've shared drafts of your work with others, have they inspired or surprised you in their reactions?
Um, I've had the wonderful experience of sharing this work with people who are also in the writing concentration, other students at the writing concentrators ball. Their friends and family were watching, and I've heard lovely notes from them saying that their parents enjoyed my reading, their siblings, people that I have truly no connection to that seem to have been touched by it.
So, what's the next step for the body thus confesses?
I would really like to continue The Body Thus Confesses in my MFA program at the University of Pittsburgh. I'd like for the topic behind it, if not the actual text, to become part of my graduating thesis at Pittsburgh. Um, I've found this topic really energizing and invigorating in a way unlike any other topic that I've ever written about.
So, how has this moment of physical distancing influenced your process?
Been quite disruptive in the sense that writing at Yale really is a community. The sort of physical distancing aspect of all this was difficult for me, but it also has given me a lot of room to think. Um, as I'm speaking to you now, I'm literally in my childhood bedroom. And so the sort of memories that are very key to the body thus confesses. I also think that it's, being around my family, um, the members of whom I know I mentioned that my parents had lost weight, but my family in other ways, I think is, you could say it's majority fat. And I think that being around them for this extended period of time, I think has given me a newfound sense of purpose in who I'm actually writing this for.